Now we look at the architecture of DBMS. Dbms architecture is how a database is viewed or represented to users. It helps represent your data in an understandable way to the users by hiding the complex bits that deal with the working of the system. Remember, DBMS architecture is not about how the DBMS software operates or how it processes data. We are going to take a look at the ANSI Spark architecture. ANSI Spark is an acronym for American National Standards Institute Standards Planning and Requirements Committee, which is an abstract design standard for a database management system first proposed in 1975. It sets standards for American goods to be used anywhere in the world without compatibility problems. In the case of DBMS software, ANSI has standardized SQL, so that most DBMS products use SQL as the main query language. We will look at all the levels in the next page. There are 3 levels in ANSI Spark architecture. It consists of internal schema, conceptual schema, and external schema. The ANSI has also standardized a 3-level DBMS architecture model followed by most database systems, and it's known as the abstract ANSI Spark design standard. The ANSI Spark database architecture is set up into 3 tiers. Let's take a closer look at them. Internal level. The internal level is the lowest level in a 3-tiered database. This level deals with how the database data is stored. This level shows exactly how the data is stored and organized for access on the system. This is the most technical of these 3 levels. Conceptual level. This level is about the relationship between the data members. This level describes the structure of the whole database for a community of users, which mapping the need of external level and internal level. External level. This is the uppermost level in the database. This level is also known as a view level because it deals with how a user views the database. The external level allows a user to access a customized version of the data in database. Multiple users can work on a database on the same time because of it. It maintains the security of the database by giving users access only to the data which they need at a particular time. Any data that is not needed will not be displayed. Three-level ANSI Spark architecture of DBMS can be concludes internal level. Internal schema at the internal level to describe physical storage structures and access paths. Typically uses a physical data model. Conceptual level. Conceptual schema at the conceptual level to describe the structure and constraints for the whole database for a community of users. Uses a conceptual or an implementation data model. External level. External schema at the external level to describe the various user views. Users will see different views of database based on their needs. Now let's move on to client-server architecture. Client-server architecture of DBMS is a networked computing model that distributes processes between clients and servers which supply requested services, client workstation, usually a PC, that requests and uses a service. Server is a computer or PC or mainframe that provides a service for DBMS. where the server is a database server. There are several types of client-server architecture. The architecture which you need to know are file server architecture, database server architecture, three-tier architecture. Click next to know more about the types of client-server architecture. File server architecture. File server architecture is all processing is done by the PC that requested the data in file allocation table or FAT. Each client PC is authorized to use the Dbms when a database application program runs on the PC. Entire files are transferred from the server to the client for processing. Click at the button to look at the example of file server architecture. This is an example of file server architecture. Entire files are transferred from the server to the client for processing via the file server architecture. Database server architecture. Database server architecture can greatly reduce data traffic on the network, improve data integrity since it is all processed data centrally, where the data is centralized. Click the button to look at the example of database server architecture. The figure is an example of database server architecture. Database server architecture can greatly reduce data traffic on the network. It improves data integrity since it's all processed centrally. Three-tier architecture. Three-tier architecture is a client-server configuration that includes three layers. One client layer, presentation tier, two server layers, business logic tier and data tier. An additional server may be used for different purposes. Application programs, application server, local database. Click the button to look at the example of three-tier architecture. The figure is an example of three-tier architecture. As you can see in the three-tier architecture, there are two server layers, business logic tier and data tier, and one client layer, presentation tier. In data tier layer, it is used to store and retrieve from a database or file system and pass to the logic tier. In logic tier layer, it is used to process the command and make logical decisions and evaluations to perform the operation. It also processes the data between the two surrounding layers, which are presentation and data. In presentation tier layer, it is used for application user interface. The main functions of this layer is to translate results or the task to the user.